If you're just getting into investing, it can be quite scary. Loads of different words and acronyms are thrown at you without any real explanation. So in this video, I'll be going through the confusing names of the different index funds and simplifying them for you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to work out what certain funds are and what they invest in. And this will help make sure that you know exactly what you're putting your money into. Also, if you struggle with any of the other investing jargon, you can access our free index fund cheat sheet in the description below. We'll start by looking at the full names of the funds. Every single fund name can be broken down into sections, no matter how long or confusing it may seem. For this example, I'll use a fund provided by Vanguard, and that actually makes up the first part of the name. Every fund will typically begin with the name of the provider, so it could be Vanguard like this one, or iShares, Invesco, there are loads of them. But just know that the first part is usually the fund provider. Now, here's where we get onto the interesting bit, which is the index. After the provider's name, you'll be given information on which index the fund is tracking and investing into. Some of the biggest indexes include the S&P 500, which is a list of the top 500 companies in the US, and the FTSE 100, which is the top 100 companies in the UK. But there are thousands of indexes, some with huge differences and others with very small differences. Just think of the index as the list of companies that the fund is tracking. If you're wondering what the index is tracking, then you can Google the name that's listed here on the fund and you'll get all the information you need about it. This is arguably the most important part of the fund name, as this is telling you where your money is being invested. So as long as you're comfortable with this and you do your own research into the index, you're already most of the way there. The information within the index can include a wide variety of things, so let's clear them up. If you see terms like global all cap, this is referring to the geographical location and size of the businesses being invested in. Global means that it's tracking companies across the globe, and all cap would mean that businesses of all sizes are on the list. There are small, medium, and large cap businesses that can be specifically tracked by certain indexes, so if this is the case, the fund will list it as small, medium, or large cap. For example, a global small and medium cap index would be a list of small to medium sized businesses across the globe. Instead of global, you might see terms like developed or emerging markets, which is telling you where the businesses on the list are situated. If it's a developed market, it's somewhere like the US, UK, or basically anywhere that has a strong economy and high income. And if it's an emerging market, it could be somewhere like Brazil, Argentina, or even China. So places that show some signs of being a developed market, but not all. Funds can also be listed as ESG, which stands for Environmental Social Governance. If you see a fund with this icon on it, or ESG in its name, it means that it's taking an ethical approach to investing, like avoiding fossil fuels and other things of that nature. And if you want to know exactly how the fund is taking a more ethical approach, then you can Google the fund name and find some more information. If you ever see a fund say X, that means it's excluding a certain area. X UK funds would track an index that excludes UK from the list. Another example would be Asia X Japan, and in this one the index would track businesses across all of Asia except for Japan. There is something that you will see a lot of when looking at funds, and that is some strange letters at the end of the fund name. These will come in the form of UCITS or UCITS. This stands for Undertakings for Collective Investment in Transferable Securities. This stamp lets you know that the fund in question has passed certain criteria set out by the EU and means that the fund can be sold anywhere in the European Union. And the UK has also adopted this framework. Many of the funds that are popular in America are not available in the UK. And as an example of this, if you watch any of the American finance channels, you'll hear them discussing VU. VU is Vanguard's S&P 500 fund, but in the UK it's called VUSA, which appears on the fund as VUSA. At the very end of each fund, depending on the platform you use, it will sometimes detail whether it's an accumulative fund or an income fund, and this will be shown with ACC or INC in brackets. Sometimes it might show as AC or DIST, other times, like with ESG, this might just be a label on the fund page itself rather than in the name. An accumulative fund is one that will automatically reinvest any returns you make on your investment, and these will go directly back into the same fund. This is the preferred choice of many long-term investors, as it allows them to just put their money away and let it compound without having to manually reinvest it every time they earn returns. An income fund, sometimes labelled as distributing or dividends, pays out your returns so you can decide whether you want to reinvest them or withdraw. This can happen every 3 months, every year, or however frequently you want it to. It's important that you note which type of fund you're investing in, as this will affect the management of your investment. So depending on the approach you're taking to investing, you need to choose accordingly. I gave some examples before when I mentioned VU or VUSA, but you will often see acronyms that appear below each of the fund names. And these are all completely unique to the provider of the fund. And they're mostly common on ETFs or exchange traded funds. In our example, you can see it's labeled as VUAG, which is Vanguard's S&P 500 accumulative fund. This, simply put, is a shortened unique identifier for the fund name and is unique to each provider and fund. As long as you're confident in the index you're investing into and the type of fund that it is, you won't need to worry too much about this abbreviation other than just using it as a quick identifying point for the fund. And one more note, if you're in the UK, make sure you're investing via a stocks and shares ISA. I've put a video on screen that breaks down exactly how these work for you now.